In this video, we will look at an exam question based around criteria N, the challenges and benefits of studying the historic environment. So we will look at what are the challenges to studying the Doncaster plant works and how somebody would overcome these challenges. So the challenges to studying our site and understanding our site are these. Only 1/3 of the site remains, so 2/3 of the site have been demolished. We've also had challenges in understanding what it was like when it was first built and during its heyday, as many of the old workshops, like the Crimsel, have been demolished during the industrial decline phase of the 1980s and the 1990s. Also, the development of technology used within the site today, so WabTech, as well as health and safety measures, have changed the appearance significantly inside the remaining site. Alongside this, we have many new workshops which are really modern, and these have been added at a later date, and they're very different in appearance to what the workshops looked like originally. For example, the heavy shop that we went to visit. Another problem as well, I suppose, is the access to the site. You have to be allowed on the site by WabTech, which is a private company, so it's not open to the general public. So this is the question we're going to be looking at today. What challenges are there when trying to understand the appearance of your site when it was first created, and how could someone overcome these challenges? So in this exam, you need to make sure you are writing 3 paragraphs, making 3 points that are well explained. And for this first paragraph, we would look at the challenge that 2/3 of the site were demolished during the industrial decline phase in the 1980s and the 1990s. So when we are addressing this point, we need to make sure that we're telling the examiner that during the industrial decline phase of the site had become privatised under the Conservative governments led by Margaret Thatcher and John Major. Important workshops such as the Crimsel were demolished, and although this is a great loss to the site, it is easy to overcome these challenges as 1/3 of the original site remains, which is now owned by the private company called WabTech. WabTech remains are the same shape and style as the ones that have been demolished. Several of these buildings are Grade 2 listed, such as the E2 workshops, where you can see the Flying Scotsman here, leaving that particular workshop. So, as a consequence of this, the building cannot be demolished because it is Grade 2 listed, and many of the original features remain, which cannot be changed or altered. So, for example, the large wooden doors, which the famous locomotives such as the Mallard and Flying Scotsman left through, as well as original ironwork that we saw along the beams that run along the ceiling. So as a result of this, the original appearance of E2 remains largely unchanged from when it was first built in 1853. So that's how you would overcome that particular challenge. The next point then would be this. You'd be looking at the new workshops that have been added to the site throughout its history, changing the original look of the site. Okay, so that would be our next challenge. So these new buildings are very different in appearance to the original buildings built during the Industrial Revolution, both inside and out. The new buildings are made from materials such as corrugated iron, whereas the original workshops were made from brick. To overcome this, you can visit existing buildings, like we mentioned in our previous paragraph, but also analyse the physical evidence and remains of the site. You can find engineering bricks from the partly demolished walls of the Crimsel workshop, which show the concrete and the bricks have been reinforced. These bricks are heavy and have a high iron content and are typical of the industrial style buildings of the time it was built. These types of bricks were used for their strength to construct large buildings needed to maintain and build locomotives. Due to the development of technology as well, the machinery inside has changed over time. But to overcome this challenge, a historian could use photographs of the interior, which we've looked at many of these during our lessons, as well as carefully looking at the existing buildings where you will find evidence such as the original tracks that run along the floor, the large windows which have been chosen to let in lots of natural light that help the employees with their complex work. Although some of the glass has been changed in these, the original shape and size of the windows remain the same. So that's how you would overcome that particular challenge of new workshops being added throughout its history. And finally, the final challenge is that where 2/3 of the site originally was, there's now a new housing estate built on top of where much of the original site was built. So that would be our final challenge in understanding the appearance of the site. So the building of a new housing estate on the original works is very typical of this type of buildings. Many original railway works have been demolished to make way for new housing estates, such as the site at Horwich that we looked at. This challenge can be overcome by using a combination of evidence, so existing buildings and other evidence such as photographs, maps and satellite imagery. These sources show the original layout and names of the workshops, which are no longer there, as well as showing the size and scale of the site when it was first built, the length of the road that we can see down here that runs through the original site. We can see that through satellite imagery. From the original plans of the site, you can see the name of the original buildings, so this here, such as the boiler shop, the carriage shop. These plans, combined with photographs of the listed building and the listed buildings such as E2 and Denison House, which is here where the offices were, will help someone overcome the challenge of understanding the appearance of the site when it was first created. So just to recap, the challenges are 2/3 of the site have been demolished during the industrial decline so make sure we're explaining why, because of the change in government. The Conservative government began to privatise industry, like the rail industry. We've got new workshops that have been added to the site throughout its history. And on 2/3 of the site that was demolished, there is now a new housing estate. Okay, so these were the challenges. These are the challenges that a historian would face. And to overcome this, we've got evidence such as the partly demolished Crimpsall, the bricks, the reinforced engineering bricks, the original workshops that are still there today that are largely unchanged because they are grade 2 listed, and combining evidence such as the original buildings, maps, satellite imagery will help someone overcome the challenges to understand the appearance of our site when it was first created.